Today we're looking at Theme 2, Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course, looking at laws in contemporary society, particularly what is the point of having laws. We've already looked at the reason we have laws, and we've also explored the British legal system and how it upholds fairness and justice. Now we're going to be looking at the relationships between laws and the people. So do we change laws or do laws change us? That's the big question. So up here we have lawmaking and changing, and down here we have people's opinions and attitudes. Do we think that people's opinions and attitudes change the laws, or do we think the laws that exist change who we are and our attitudes? We're going to look at 3 cases that demonstrate how people's opinions and attitudes can impact on lawmaking and changing. So the first case we're looking at is the Stephen Lawrence case. Stephen Lawrence was brutally attacked and murdered in South London in 1993 by a group of racist men. Due to the lack of investigation conducted by the police, justice was not served. Stephen Lawrence's parents campaigned for the justice of their son, to the point where even Nelson Mandela got involved. They claimed institutionalised racism within the police force, and they demanded that a public inquiry take place into how the police conducted their investigation into the crime involving the murder of their son. This then led to the Macpherson Report, which was a 350-page document that criticised the Metropolitan Police Force as a whole and named specific officers. It contained around 70 recommendations to prevent racism in the police force, but also the civil service, NHS, judiciary and other public bodies. It also led to targets for recruitment of officers, retention and promotion of Black and Asian officers, as well as the creation of the Independent Police Complaints Commission, which is something we'll look at in a future session. Since 1993, the Metropolitan Police Service has increased their ethnic minority recruitment from 2.3% to 10.4%. Stop and search powers have been reviewed, and the campaign transformed the way police deal with murder, family liaison, and how they investigate hate crime. The next case is that of Greta Thunberg, a Swedish schoolgirl, a teenager who is known for initiating the school strike for climate movement in November 2018. This has had a domino effect on students across Europe who've also striked to put pressure on governments and parliaments across Europe to take climate change more seriously. So this is a clear example of where one person can influence the opinions and attitudes of many people in order to affect change and impact on policies and lawmaking across a continent regarding an issue that she's really passionate about, and in this case, climate change. The final case we're going to be looking at is Joanna Lumley's Gurkha campaign. Gurkhas were soldiers from a country called Nepal. They fought as part of the British Army during World War II and served Britain for almost 200 years, with over 50,000 dying in service to the British Army. Originally, they were not allowed to settle in the UK, despite fighting for Britain. However, the Labour government under Tony Blair changed the rules so that Gurkhas who retired after 1997 would be allowed to settle in the UK. However, in 2008, the actress Joanna Lumley became the public face of the campaign to provide all Gurkha veterans who served in the British Army, even before 1997, the right to settle in Britain. And she ran a highly publicised and successful campaign. Joanna Lumley and supporters of her campaign believed this reversed decades of discrimination against older Gurkhas who fought for the British Army yet were denied the right to retire in the UK. Her campaign has changed the law for the Gurkhas and enables them to retire and settle in the UK. Now we are going to look at how laws and policies impact on what people's opinions and attitudes are and what we believe to be our social norms. So once upon a time, it was absolutely normal for B&Bs and restaurants to have signs such as this in the 1950s. Nowadays, you would never see a sign like this because it would be illegal. People are protected under the Race Relations Act, but also the Equality Act 2010. In fact, if we were to see something like this in a restaurant or a B&B, we'd be disgusted by it and very offended. And notice how that piece of legislation and those laws have impacted on what we now believe to be normal in modern day society. Similarly with smoking laws. Once upon a time there were smoking and non-smoking sections in restaurants. People used to be allowed to smoke on trains and buses and on aeroplanes, but nowadays that is no longer allowed. And in fact, if someone was to light up a cigarette next to you whilst you're eating a meal, you'd probably be disgusted by it and not very happy with what they're doing. Notice again how certain laws that have been put in place around smoking have impacted on what we believe to be normal and not normal. This is also similar with mobile phone laws, particularly when driving. Once upon a time, when mobile phones did not exist, these laws would not have existed either. Since then, these laws have been put in place, and now it's illegal to do those things whilst driving. This brings us to the end of this part of this session. Next, we'll be moving on to looking at a case study exploring the development of laws to protect homosexuality and same-sex couples.